I'd rather die than share your bed. I'm not some harem girl you can handcuff to your headboard." Amelia was livid. Javier gave a sly smile. "Who said anything about handcuffs? Such a dirty mind." Amelia's patience had reached her limit. This man spent their entire dinner twisting her words until she finally agreed to live with him. And now he thinks he can negotiate her into his bed? She made the mistake of falling into bed with him once, and it ended up being the biggest mistake of her life. That was never going to happen again. She raised her hand, ready to land a second slap on the monarch who had turned her life upside down. Then, she noticed a dumb smirk on Javier's face. He smiled, flashing his perfect teeth. "I was kidding. The girl I remember from that night years ago could take a joke," Javier commented charmingly, which only irritated Amelia further. "Well, that girl had to birth and raise a child on her own after being abandoned by her family. Thanks to you. Try enduring 6 years of that and see if your charming sense of humor stays intact." Amelia stormed off, heading for the door. "Amelia, wait," she sighed, ready to be done with him. "Before you go, this is important. For Max's safety, my identity as his father must be kept a secret. I have political enemies and crazies out there who could see the prince's son as a target. No one can know. Not your family, not friends. I know it sounds extreme, but you don't have to explain. I understand." Amelia cut him off. Though it pained her to think that Max would have to lie to pretend he didn't know his dad, his safety was her priority. "Good night, Amelia. It was good to see you again." She gave him a disinterested look and strode off. Javier smiled to himself as the only woman daring enough to strike a prince not once, but almost twice, walked out on him. He knew he had a lot to make up for, and he hoped she'd let him. Days flew by, and soon it had already been a week since Amelia and Max moved into Javier's estate. Everything still felt like a strange dream to her. Just days before, she was at the supermarket having to decide which groceries to remove from her cart because she didn't have enough money in her account to cover it all. Her own shampoo was returned to the shelf to be able to buy Max's kids' shampoo instead. Now, the woman who always put herself last had gone from a cramped one-bedroom apartment with no air conditioning to living in a palatial villa with a staff ready to cater to her every need. After their tumultuous dinner, Amelia dreaded running into the arrogant prince in the mansion halls. But to her relief, he had spent the entire week away, traveling for work. However, not everyone was pleased with Javier's absence. Max was yearning for the presence of the father who had just entered his life. Amelia noticed it when she heard Javier's voice coming from the TV in Max's bedroom. "And I'd like to thank the American government for facilitating the trade exchange with Spain." Amelia walked in to find Max intently watching the news. The boy looked up at his mother, trying to appear casual to conceal his sadness. "Will Dad be home to put me to bed tonight?" She sighed deeply. "I'm not sure, sweetheart. He has a busy schedule, but in the morning we can ask Victor when he'll be back." Amelia tried to keep Max's spirits up about the whole "my father is alive and a prince, but I can't tell anyone" situation. Thankfully, it wasn't hard to distract him now that Javier had spoiled him with every toy a boy could wish for. A bed shaped like a race car, a custom-built treehouse with a slide, though the little genius's favorite part was a cozy reading nook that featured beanbag chairs shaped like planets. Amelia couldn't help but wonder if it all was a bit too much. She didn't want him to take his father's wealth for granted and grow up to be a spoiled brat. After Amelia read Max a bedtime story, he turned to her with puppy dog eyes.
Big Star, can you sleep with me tonight? My new car bed is cool, but it's so big it feels weird.
She tucked him in and stared into his sleepy eyes. Of course, little moon. I just have to finish some work, and I'll come back in a minute. As Amelia walked down the hall, she got an email notification on her phone. When she saw what it was, she groaned in frustration. It was an email from South Miami Prep School, the best school in the city, offering gifted classes for advanced kids like Max. But it was extremely competitive to get into. Amelia had been fighting the good fight, but no matter what she did, she couldn't get Max off the waiting list. She worried he'd have to stay at his current school, which failed to cater to a smart kid like him. Amelia entered her enormous bedroom, which had an annex that served as an office. She sat at her desk to catch up on work. It had been challenging to balance the big move and her internship as a translator with Miami's Council of Foreign Affairs. Things were picking up at work, and she was determined to impress her boss. There was a big cultural event tomorrow, and her job assigned her to translate for some German diplomats. She needed to prepare for it, but couldn't find the reference books she needed. They'd been misplaced during the move. In search of them, she ventured over to the estate's grand library, which was also Javier's study, and was overwhelmed by the impressive shelves of books that towered above her. Just as she suspected, she found her reference material had been stored there, but their location wasn't exactly convenient. Of course, they had to be on the highest shelf. Amelia climbed onto a chair and stood on tiptoe, reaching for the book, but was still a few inches too short. Could they have put it any further? Just then, Javier padded into the library. He had just returned from his trip and needed to store some sensitive documents in the safe. He didn't expect to find Amelia in his study, doing acrobatics atop a chair. Javier hung back to admire the sight of her. She looked so pretty like this. Fresh-faced, in her pajamas, her hair seemed so soft and touchable, its ends still wet from the bath. Need a hand? His voice startled her, and she nearly lost her balance. She shot him a glare. You can keep your hands to yourself, thank you. I got it. He crossed his arms and stood behind her to watch her stubborn attempt. She stretched again and did a little hop, finally grabbing the book. Ha! Told you. But when she gave the book a hard tug, the chair wobbled, and Amelia went flying backward. Javier rushed over to catch the clumsy girl, and they both toppled like dominoes onto the floor. Damn it! She exclaimed, offering no apology. You got it, huh? The grumpy Javier spoke, the air knocked out of him from the fall. No one told you to, Amelia went to stand up, but yelped. Her hair was caught on something. She turned to find herself face to face with Javier's crotch and realized the thing her hair was caught on was his zipper. Amelia, what are you doing? Don't move. My hair is stuck in your zipper. She placed her hands on his thigh to brace herself. Caught off guard by the intimate touch, Javier felt something stir within him and held his breath. Her proximity to his lap was particularly torturous. You have to be kidding me, he muttered. Amelia gently tugged her hair back and forth, trying to free it, but it didn't work. Then, while trying to steady herself, she unknowingly placed her hand on a certain bulge. Javier immediately froze. Amelia, pay attention, he said in a stern frustration. Her eyes opened wide, realizing what she'd touched. She quickly removed her hand. Growing flustered, she changed tactics and clumsily fumbled with his zipper. Stop. You're making it worse. Javier snapped, bothered by how easily her touch was affecting him. He was used to being in control of himself and everything around him, but now his body was betraying him, as if he were some hormonal teenager. Equally frustrated, Amelia threw up her hands.
Fine. Do you have a better plan? Or has all the blood rushed away from your brain?
Javier reached for his briefcase on the floor and took out a pair of scissors.
I'll just cut you free. Don't you dare. I don't trust you. I'll end up with half a bob.
She protectively held her hands over her hair. Javier's patience was wearing thin.
This all could have been avoided if you had let me help you to begin with. Hell, we have dozens of people here who are paid to assist. Why didn't you ask any of them?
Because I'm not a spoiled princess, she thought to herself.
It's late. I didn't want to bother anyone. That's what they're here for,
Javier exclaimed.
To be bothered. And yet I keep hearing how you insist on doing all your chores yourself. And Max's too.
Frustrated, she replied.
You told me to make myself at home. And at home, I do my own chores. It calms me. Also, if this is supposed to be my home, why can't I ever find any of my things?
She smacked his leg in exasperation. Javier yelped.
Sorry.
Just then, something occurred to her.
If you want to help me with something I actually need help with, why don't you get your son into South Miami Prep School?
Javier furrowed his brow.
They won't let him in.
Amelia let out a disappointed breath.
Perpetually waitlisted, even though Max got perfect scores on all the entry exams.
He took this in, then nodded.
I'll handle it. Consider it done.
That's it? Is that easy? Was this what it felt like to have a partner in raising your child? She'd gotten used to carrying the burden all on her own. Realizing she now had someone fighting in her corner, she was filled with a sense of warmth. That is, until she came back to reality and realized she was still trapped in a very compromising position. As if he was reading her mind, Javier shifted.
Okay, I'm going to try something. Just don't move.
Javier fished through her hair, unbuckled his belt, then slowly unzipped his pants. It worked. Amelia was able to pull her hair free.
Finally. God.
Amelia looked over, and her eyes fell on Javier, not expecting to see his undone pants hanging low around his hips. Her gaze drifted down and landed on two defined V-cut abs that disappeared into a pair of snug, black boxer briefs. She was staring, and she didn't even know it.
Enjoying the view, Miss Rivera?